All right. Hi, everyone. Welcome to Mindgasms. I'm Andrew, aka Damon Mindgasms, and I've got the Dragonstone Centrist, aka Woke Centrist, aka Dusty Cubes, aka Dustin Cubit here, of course. And we're going to do our fantasy nerd chat about episode 2 of House of the Dragon and compare. In my opinion, it's worse than episode 1, but still a very good show so far, and talk about that and compare it to episode 1. And of course, the episode 2 is called Rogue Prince, and there's stuff about a child bride and Daemon's sex slave wife. So we'll talk about all the interesting, exciting aspects of the episode, along with comparing it to episode 1 and kind of compare it so far to Game of Thrones, because I didn't get to talk about that with you guys yet. And of course, Tubin the Cable Guy, aka Chris James, is going to be here in a little bit to join us as well. And I also want to get a little bit into the House of the Dragon show versus the Fire and Blood book on which it is based, but not get into spoilers for that, especially since we'll probably do a dedicated chat for that. And yeah, just talk about the both shows in comparison to the books, but basically just this show in general. So yeah, I guess so. Actually, let's why don't you tell me your general impressions of the show so far, along with episode 2 in comparison to episode 1, to start off.
Well, I'm convinced that the actress that plays Rhaenyra has a RBF.
What's that?
Resting bitch face.
Oh, yeah, a little bit.
I think it's that weird pout thing going on.
I
but
think
did you
it's
know that
too.
the actress, she's like 22. She just happens to be really short.
I thought she was like. I saw Craig on the Legendarium said she was like 30.
Okay, so there's going to be a time skip in the show, and
Okay.
there's actually 2 actresses that play Rhaenyra.
Oh, really?
Yeah, so there's a 15-year-old version that we're seeing now, and she's played by a 22-year-old.
Okay.
And then when they do the time skip, there's going to be an actress that's like 30 playing her.
Oh, okay. Oh, I see it. I see a comparison here. Oh, I'm gonna screen share this. It looks like the if this is the actor
They look
who
alike.
plays. Sorry?
They very much look alike. The actresses.
If they're
not related, which is interesting.
Okay. She kind of looks a little bit like Jodie Foster, the older one, I think. Yeah, this one here. Is that her?
You have to zoom in. I can't quite see it. Yeah, I believe that's her, the older version.
Oh, am I still sharing? Yeah, I'll go to stop sharing that one and share this one. Not that one. Hey. Oh, that's weird. Oh, it went to... I clicked on an ad by accident. Never mind that then. What is going on here? Cancel. There we go. But yeah, she looks a little bit like Jodie Foster, I think. That's interesting. So, do you think there's going to be... There might be a time jump with each season?
I don't know when the time jump occurs, but I do know for sure there's going to be one. I just have no idea. As I know, they've cast older versions of both Alicent and Rhaenyra. So Rhaenyra has a older counterpart, and Alicent also has an older counterpart.
Okay.
So I was just happening to look at the casting, and I noticed that there were 2 people cast for each of those
Okay.
characters.
Okay. Yeah. So, yeah. So well, how do you like episode 2 in comparison to episode 1 so far?
It was okay. It was a lot of politicking, mostly. Politicking, character development. I guess there's like this opening where it shows like how these people are tortured with crabs.
Mm-hmm.
There's kind of like this new threat that the sea snake is the same. Is that guy the guy Valerian? Is he a sea snake? The sea snake?
The
guy that has
black
all
guy
the
with
shit.
dreadlocks?
Yeah.
Oh, I looked up sea
Corliss.
snake and it went to like an actual sea snake in the real world.
No, his nickname is the sea snake, but he's kind of like the.
Oh yeah, it is that guy. Oh, I didn't realize it was that guy. I thought they were two different people for some reason. Yeah, Corliss Valerian. So yeah, he is the sea snake. Yeah.
So he kind of, they're trying to arrange a marriage.
Mm-hmm.
What was she, like 12 or something?
Yeah, trying to basically like the council, who's the, what is it, like the
small council or
the small council, yeah. I was gonna call it the high table from John Wick, but yeah, the small council, they want the king to, well, especially the Valerian guy, he wants Viserys to marry his daughter, who is 12, and she'll be of childbearing age in 2 years, because they want her to provide him with a male heir, because they basically, no one wants Daemon, his brother, to become the new king because he's too erratic and violent and unpredictable, which is why in episode 1, Viserys named Rhaenyra his daughter the new heir to the throne, and then he kind of betrayed her and surprised everyone by saying that he's going to marry Alicent Hightower instead, who is the daughter of the Hand of the King, who has been sending his daughter to basically kind of become friends with the king, and he gradually has developed a love interest for her. So we see all of these conflicting politicking and manipulations that we see that are common from Game of Thrones, which is cool too. And it's cool that there's more dragons in this show too.
Yeah, we also see that like a lot of people are trying to manipulate the king.
Definitely,
and
yeah.
We definitely see that the Hand of the King is definitely manipulating him in a way that is going to produce heirs of his bloodline, right?
Yeah.
One of the things about this episode is like they talk about the king's duties and what tasks that he has to perform. And there's also kind of this unresolved tension between Viserys and Rhaenyra regarding her mother's death, because they hadn't really had a heart-to-heart since then. And we could already see that he was like going on these like garden strolls with the 12-year-old.
Right.
And while she was doing that, her aunt, is that her aunt? Or no, I'm not sure how they're related. Rhaenys?
Which
the sea snake's wife.
Oh yeah. If is whose aunt?
Is Rhaenys the aunt, or is she just not related?
That is a good question.
I think she's
Rhaenys Targaryen, youngest sister of King Aegon Targaryen. Both she and her older sister Visenya. I'm looking at a wiki of Ice and Fire here. Youngest sister of King Aegon the First Targaryen, first Lord of the Seven Kingdoms. Both she and her older sister Visenya were married to Aegon, and it was said that she was Aegon's favorite. Through her son with Aegon, Aenys I, the line of the Dragon Kings continued, with 15 and 16 Targaryen kings being direct descendants of Rhaenys and Aegon.
Okay, she's a cousin.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah, she's cousin of Viserys. So they're related. Like,
okay.
So her daughter is like, what would the daughter of a cousin to somebody be? Like a second cousin?
Your cousins. Oh yeah, well I guess that would be second cousin, because I have cousins who have kids, and I think that makes them my second cousins. Yeah.
So I guess the deal was they were gonna have the king marry his second cousin.
Right.
Which is not out of line for Targaryens, because they usually do even worse stuff than that.
Yeah, because they often marry their siblings to preserve the bloodline and that sort of stuff, right?
Yeah, because I think this era is post, like the era that we're seeing here in the show is post conflict, because there was a huge conflict between the church and the Targaryens when they first arrived. That the Targaryens were considered abominations because they often interbred and committed incest. They're kind of past that era where they've basically said that whatever the Targaryens do is legal and they don't bother with it anymore. But yeah, he was set to marry his 12-year-old second cousin.
Yeah.
And we're trying to get into the head of Rhaenyra to see what kind of state she's in, because we don't really know. She seems to be okay with making sure that the duties that they have to be fulfilled are fulfilled, and she understands those duties. When she does finally talk to her father, he reassures her that like nobody would ever replace her mother.
You mean Viserys?
No, I'm talking Viserys told Rhaenyra that nobody was going to be able to replace her mother.
Yeah, that's what I mean. Yeah.
Trying to reassure his daughter that her mother meant a lot to him.
Yeah,
and that
for sure.
These other like people that he's being forced to marry, he's trying to convey that it's just something that's duty bound.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, that's an interesting. That's an interesting aspect.
The ending of the episode is so fucked up.
Yeah, definitely. Because he's like, okay, I'm gonna marry Alicent Hightower. Oh, you didn't know? Oh, sorry, Rhaenyra, you didn't know that I've been for a long time making friends and becoming romantically interested in your best friend, who's also a teenage girl, did you?
Right, and at this point, he's not doing his duty to the realm, because if he's marrying the Hand's daughter, that doesn't solve the problem with like the oncoming threat with the crab feeder. Is that the name of the guy?
I'm not sure, but yeah, that seems like it's
sinking ships.
It seems like that guy's shaping up to be one of the major villains in the show.
At least for the first season, you know.
Yeah, for sure. And yeah, of course, he's that's interesting, that dynamic between Viserys and Rhaenyra, and between Viserys's basically like desires to just do what he wants and his and his duties as a king, because he and Rhaenyra are all broken up about his wife and Rhaenyra's mother dying in childbirth in episode 1, which I was guessing that you were talking about in your spoiler-free video, the most gruesome part of episode 1, which was like this medieval botched,
childbirth.
medieval botched C-section where the woman dies in childbirth, and then the child who is finally a son dies shortly after that. And so the reason why the small council wants him to marry Alison Hightower is because she and her father are Valyrians, so an alliance between the Valyrians and the Targaryens would be very good for preserving the noble bloodline for the throne. And I like that whole aspect of them talking about old Valyria and the downfall of this ancient kingdom, and how the Valyrians are considered to be even more pure-blooded than the Targaryens, but they were never Targaryens. The Targaryens, or they were never dragon riders. The Targaryens were dragon riders, but the Valyrians never were. So there's that dynamic. And then also in episode 2, there's the whole part about basically Daemon was banished to Dragonstone in episode 1. Viserys sent him there and told him, "You're not going to get the throne next. I'm giving it to Rhaenyra." And so he goes to Dragonstone, but he's been basically defying Viserys's rule and kind of proclaiming himself. Well, no, he wasn't proclaiming himself as. Oh, wait, yeah. In episode 1, he was basically defying the king and trying to provide his own rulership, and then he married as a second wife this slave prostitute who he was having sex with in a brothel in episode 1, and he's trying to make her his second wife.
I don't even think they got married. He just lied.
Oh yeah, I think they're going to get married, like they're betrothed. And then he also steals that dragon's egg, and then it takes Rhaenyra going there with her dragon to get the dragon egg back, and basically she does a way better job than the Hand of the King, who Viserys sends there to get him to back down and give back the dragon egg and be put in his place, basically.
Yeah, so I think Viserys is a pretty interesting character because of his unpredictability.
Mm-hmm.
He kind of reminds me of Tyrion, but not as witty. He's kind of like the bastard stepchild that nobody has faith in. And that's kind of how he's being treated. And the interesting thing that's very similar to Tyrion, there is one family member that he genuinely likes, and we get to see their interaction. And when Rhaenyra shows up, they kind of have a cordial-ish conversation. I don't think it was as big a gamble as anyone thought. I thought it was pretty obvious.
Yeah,
Daemon would not kill her.
Yeah, you can see, especially in episode 1, that they have a good relationship, especially before Viserys names Rhaenyra as the next heir to the throne. You can see that Rhaenyra has a good relationship with her uncle Daemon. So when she actually goes and confronts him face to face and says, "Are you going to kill me? Because that's the only way you're going to prevent me from being the heir to the throne." And then he's like, "Okay, well, no, I'm not going to kill you," and then gives her back the dragon egg.
Yeah. And then I like when he retires to Dragonstone, because she got completely embarrassed because she was present at that confrontation. And the confrontation initially was with the Hightower.
Yeah, the Hand of the King. Yeah.
He foolishly, showed up, and he was not prepared. Mm-hmm. And I think it was Daemon is like, "Where's my brother?" And then he said he wouldn't dignify his attendance. Yeah. But it was about to come to blows. The dragon a backup dragon came out. I was like, uh-oh, these guys are toast. And then that's when Rhaenyra shows up with her dragon. And then they get to meet on equal terms. And then his concubine, or whatever you got to call her, gets embarrassed because all of this information comes out during conversation, which he never discussed with her. And the things he never discussed was marriage and a child, which they were not married, and she was not pregnant.
And she also, they also have a conversation after that with her talking about how, you shouldn't do all this shit because it puts me at great risk, and I'm with you to help prevent me from being at risk, and you rescued me from being a sex slave, but I don't want to ever be sold back into being a sex slave again.
Mm-hmm. So, yeah, I thought that was an interesting confrontation. I thought if she didn't show up, yeah, it seems, I don't know what would have happened. I think Daemon was fully expecting like Hightower to back down.
Yeah.
But yeah, it ended up not coming to bloodshed. And the thing is, like Rhaenyra, she was not sanctioned to negotiate this. She kind of left on her own accord, unannounced, didn't tell anybody. When she returned, the king was pretty upset. But then he saw that it ended in peace, and with the return of the egg, he kind of saw, yeah, okay, she's very resourceful, and he should, respect her abilities.
And another interesting aspect, which I'm sure will become more interesting in episode 3, is that at the end of the episode, when Viserys proclaims that he's going to marry Alicent Hightower, because that Valyrian guy wants Viserys to marry his daughter, he feels betrayed because he discussed this with the king and they agreed to it. So he has one of those many infamous backroom manipulative political conversations that is basically par for the course for Game of Thrones, where they're politically scheming and he's going to basically support Daemon's claim to the throne because he feels betrayed. And then that way too, if Daemon actually does get the throne, then it will be a union between the Targaryens and the Valyrians. Well, actually, I don't think they discussed whether Daemon would still marry the Valyrian guy's daughter, but it would at least be like a political union, if nothing else. And
yeah, what
maybe
sounded like the sea snake was going to try to get Daemon seated, and in return for that, grant him basically the right to go after these pirates. Because it seems like this king Viserys is more concerned about peace than protecting his own realm. So it does appear, by a lot of people that he is somewhat of a weak ruler.
Yeah, that's another one of the main aspects of this conflict between him actually being a good person and kind of wanting to do what he wants to do, between his responsibilities and his duty to the realm and protecting King's Landing from invasion and all that kind of stuff.
So he seems to not be able to balance that very well. We do get some information from Corlys, the sea snake, that if these shipping lanes disappear, it will be completely devastating to his house, at least.
Yeah.
And he's not going to have that. If the king isn't going to support him fighting back these pirates, and he's going to have to do something to get somebody that will support him.
Yeah.
So it looks like Daemon is willing to do that.
Mm-hmm.
However, we do also see that he is still likes his brother because Corlys disparaged him, and Daemon was like, "You're not going to talk ill about my brother.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm the only
Yeah.
one who can do that."
Yeah. So he still respects him even when they're scheming behind his back. Yeah. There's that for sure too. And yeah, it seems like it seems like there's gonna be this brooding civil war that I thought from episode 1, because I hadn't reread Fire and Blood, but now I know differently, that there was going to be this civil war between basically Rhaenyra and Daemon. But and we see in episode 2 also that Rhaenyra tells Viserys that she totally understands him wanting to marry someone else to preserve the bloodline, when he's going to marry Corlys's 12-year-old daughter uh, after his wife has died. But without getting into direct spoilers from Fire and Blood, she is. It seems like she might actually be pushed closer to allying with Daemon. And if she and Daemon and Corlys Valyrian and they get other people to scheme against them, it could be a more and more brooding with stronger forces on each side civil war, especially since Lord Hightower is the hand of the king, and he could probably get other people on his side for Viserys actually marrying Lord Hightower, which is interesting too. And another little thing that I didn't notice at first is that King Viserys is also the name of one of Daenerys' dragons in Game of Thrones.
Oh, is it?
Yeah. It's one of her 3 dragons, I'm pretty sure.
Viserys, is it really? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
because one was Viserys.
I forget the other names.
Yeah, me too.
I'm gonna double check that right now. Daenerys. How do you spell? Oh, Daenerys Targaryen's dragons.
Yeah.
Dragons' names. Oh no, not Viserys. Not Viserys. Viserion. It was similar. That's why I got it wrong. So they're Drogon, Rhaegal, and Viserion.
Yeah, Viserys is actually her brother, isn't it?
Oh yeah, I think you're right.
Yeah, Viserys is it's her brother, the one that wears the golden Melton crown.
Yeah, he ends up getting killed that way. He ends up getting killed by gold getting melted on him. And he's just he's just a whiny little bitch and a weakling too, so it wasn't
I forgot why he got killed exactly.
I think I don't know. I think he pissed off Khal Drogo too much or something. I forget whether I think he did some major thing that pissed him off too much. I forget what it was.
Yeah, I'll look into it. Game of Thrones.
Daenerys Targaryen's brother. Rhaegar. That's her brother's name. He's the older brother of Viserys and Daenerys Targaryen. Oh, okay.
I think he's the one that was in the book but not the show.
Viserys?
Yeah.
That's why I remember
Rhaegar was in the book, not the show.
No, Rhaegar is the one who was in the show.
Was he?
Yeah.
Well, Viserys is the one who got the thing melted on his head.
No, it was Rhaegar.
No, that was Viserys. Viserys.
I'm looking at the Game of Thrones fandom page here. Why did it just disappear? Prince Rhaegar Targaryen, oldest son and heir of King Aerys II Targaryen by his sister wife Queen Rhaella Targaryen. Blah, blah, blah. Oh, okay. Oh, yeah. So, it sounds like Prince Rhaegar was maybe their father. Last Prince of Dragonstone, eldest son and heir to King Aerys II Targaryen, the Mad King. Older brother of... Oh, yeah. He is the older brother. Older brother of Viserys and Daenerys. Oh, yeah. So, yeah, you're right. He was in the book, but not the show. Oh, he was married to a Martell, who he had 2 children with. Okay.
Yeah. Well, yeah, Viserys is a Golden Crown boy.
Yes. There you go. Not one of the dragons. Him, the Golden Crown boy. Okay. So, yeah, and one aspect that I think is a major aspect of the show that I thought was interesting in comparison between Game of Thrones and House of the Dragon, and also is that we learn in the Fire and Blood book and see in the House of Dragon show that it was a regular thing for Targaryens to be dragon riders, and the people have such amnesia about history in the world of A Song of Ice and Fire that during the time of Game of Thrones, people, especially at the start of the show, think that dragons are just a myth and they never actually existed. But we know that just 170 years before, it was commonly accepted and commonplace for dragons to exist and all the Targaryens to be dragon riders. It wasn't just this false mythology created around them.
Well, some Targaryens are dragon riders. I don't think all of them are.
Oh, yeah, I just mean it was a common thing. Yeah, probably not all of them.
But because the eggs pass down through the family line.
Right.
So they're the ones who got possession of the eggs, and the possession of the eggs never went outside of that family's bloodline.
Right.
So they got the air power, and Corlys has the sea power.
Right. Yeah, exactly.
And they wanted to marry those 2 powers together to create a stronger bond. And to be honest, Corlys's plan was probably the better plan because it was like the most practical plan they could have chosen. 12-year-old, that's freaking weird. But yeah, seemed like everybody was upset about that, but they knew it was like the best plan moving forward.
Yeah, it was a much more culturally accepted thing for people for men to have underage wives at that time, of course.
Yeah, because if you remember, a similar happening happened with in Game of Thrones. Tom and his wife, what was her name?
I don't remember.
Talking about the girl from a damn movie.
I'm not sure.
From Jesus, the name of this movie escapes me.
Okay,
but it's like Battle Royale. The chick who's an archer or whatever.
I don't think I've seen that movie.
You have seen
but
it.
there are at least a few different child brides in Game of Thrones and even Daenerys at the start of the show. She's like, isn't she supposed to be 14 or so, something like that?
Yeah, and she gets rammed by Khal Drogo.
Yeah.
But yeah, she's young. Tommen gets married to the queen who was with the gay prince or whatever his name was.
Oh yeah, the Martell. Yeah, they're
No, it
both.
wasn't a Martell. The Martells are from Dorne. Those are badasses. You mean the
I thought that.
Tyrells?
I thought.
She was a
Oh yeah,
Tyrell.
yeah, 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 yeah. Tommen marries a Tyrell, and they're both still children at that time. They're teenagers or so.
Well, Tommen in the book was still a child.
Yeah,
Like
in the
not
book he
even a
was.
and
In the
he's not that old in the show either.
yeah, in the show he's still he's not he's still a child technically, but he's older, like a teenager.
And I believe the Tyrell princess is in her 20s.
Oh, okay. I didn't realize she was that much older.
Yeah, so there's that pairing. They never married off Joffrey, did they?
Yeah, he was betrothed to Sansa, but never ended up marrying her. And then after, was it after he died that she ended up marrying Tyrion?
Yeah, she ended up marrying Tyrion, but they didn't consummate the marriage.
Right, because he's one of the very few people in the show who is actually a relatively good person.
Yeah, I agree. He has, like, of course, he's like sexually promiscuous, but he's only going to engage in willing partners when it comes to that.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, of course, like at this time, raping your wife was really not actually considered a thing.
Mm-hmm. And I know, man, I gotta return to those books someday. They're pretty entertaining.
Yeah, they're awesome. They're definitely better than the show, in my opinion. I think I've read them 3 times or so. Yeah, they're really
Yeah, I've only
awesome.
did it once. I've only read them once, so I need to read them again.
That was the first grimdark fantasy series that I ever got into, which was so cool, especially when I watched the show before I read the book. I was like, oh, there's gritty and realistic fantasy that's nothing like Lord of the Rings and is all grim dark, and that's really cool.
Yeah, that's funny because at the time I considered Game of Thrones a soap opera for dudes.
It is kind of.
So I was like, yeah, this is kind of like a soap opera, so maybe I can get my girlfriend to watch it.
Yeah, yeah. Well, that's one thing that's interesting about fantasy and sci-fi, because those are the genres that we read the most and watch for sure too. And it's funny, I've noticed before that there ends up being all this like cheesy white, like what would seem like cheesy drama and romance, like soap opera stuff that I can totally tolerate if it's in like a fantasy or sci-fi world with all these magic creatures and magic powers, or like some sort of advanced scientific technology, or taking place on another planet or something similar to that.
Yeah, I had a question. What did you think about the opening?
Of episode 2?
Yeah, because there's actually a title screen that plays out.
Oh yeah, you like the opening sequence? The opening title sequence, you mean?
Yeah.
I think it's pretty cool. It's it's shorter than the opening for Game of Thrones, which makes sense. I like that it's kind of like sands shifting into the House Targaryen symbol. I think that's pretty
I
cool.
think you're confusing that with the Lord of the Rings opening.
Am I?
Yeah.
Am I? Oh, okay. Maybe I am.
Yes.
I've only seen
The Lord of the Rings has like those symbols shifting in the sand.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I must have been switched those over in my mind then. Yeah, I've only watched the title sequence once for each of them. I usually skip those on shows.
Well, you have to at least watch the first one.
Yeah, Yeah.
But it has the same theme song, the one we know and love. But
Yeah, I
there's
noticed
no
that it's.
map.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I didn't notice that. That's one thing that we never mentioned, I don't think, in our conversation about Rings of Power yesterday. That is a predominant part of the Rings of Power show, where they show a map and they show people going for. They either show a change in perspective from one location to another location, or people traveling from one location to another location
Oh,
on the map.
yeah, I absolutely loved that they showed a map for the transition.
Yeah.
It just makes it easier for me to follow like the world's geography. It's
Mm-hmm.
like, okay, these people are over here. Oh, these people are over there. But yeah, I really like that they have like the map transition screen. I thought that was really awesome.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. So what is the actual opening title sequence for House of the Dragon then, since I got confused about that?
It's very hard for me to discern what it actually is because overall I don't know. But what you see is like a river of blood touching like different things, and it kind of has like that clockwork mechanical nature that the first opening did for Game of Thrones, where you have like castles popping up and getting built and stuff. It's kind of a similar thing, except they're not castles, and I don't know actually what the river of blood is flowing through. But in
Hmm.
my opinion, I thought that the original Game of Thrones opening was superior to this one.
Okay.
There's
Because of
no,
how much more elaborate it is, or
yeah, the elaboration and that first shot on the astrolabe or astrolab is like iconic.
mm-hmm.
There's no kind of iconic shot here in this opening. Like it's in
True.
comparison to the first like Game of Thrones, I found the opening a bit boring, to be honest.
Okay.
Like if you
That's fair.
rewatch it, you know what I mean? Because I like the map, and they kind of discarded the map, so we don't
Yeah,
have a
that's
map.
true. And it is kind of longer and has more of an epic feel to it.
Yeah, I think the map is a really important thing to emphasize in fantasy series. It's like they put all these
Yeah.
efforts into making these maps. You should present them in some way or fashion.
Yeah, I
But
get
I kind
that.
of understand that there's no map for this because um, there aren't as many locations
Mm-hmm.
in this show because there's no focus on these other houses. It's just the
Yeah.
Targaryens, and the only places that they're occupying right now are Dragonstone and King's Landing.
Yeah, yeah. So they're pretty much exclusively focusing on those two places so far, at least.
Yeah, and I kind of fear that because it's such a tight focus on this family, that we might lose like the epic sense and feel of the overall story.
Yeah, I hope not.
With all these chess pieces and moving around and these alliances and stuff. So we'll see how that works out.
Yeah, yeah, that's fair. I hope it still ends up being just as interesting, but I could see that. Well, especially like for one thing, there aren't the White Walkers, or there at least isn't going to be a massive war with the White Walkers.
No, no White Walker War. And that wasn't even the climax of the series, which was interesting.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. It
Which,
still went on to after that to basically a war for the throne of the Seven Kingdoms, and then the Red Keep gets basically or King's Landing rather basically gets destroyed by Daenerys, and Jon Snow ends up killing her when she gets all violent, and then he gets sent to the Night's Watch, and Brandon becomes the new king. Yeah, I was telling you before, I thought it still was pretty good when I was getting towards the end of the final season, but then I didn't realize that there were only 2 episodes left, and then it really did feel way too rushed to me at the end there.
What did you think of Clegane Bowl?
Of what?
Clegane Bowl.
What's that?
The Hound versus the Mountain.
Oh, that was fucking cool, man. That was a really cool fight. especially since the mountain is all he's all like fucking zombie mountain now at the end of the show.
Yeah, it looks like Vader with his helmet off, like a zombie.
Yeah,
Vader
he does.
Helmet.
yeah, for sure.
And then he killed Maester Qyburn. Like he just like threw him on the ground and smashed his skull open.
Yeah. Well, that's why it was good that they got a strongman to play that role. That was really cool because he's a convincing character to play basically an almost giant or an actual giant.
Yeah, the mountain that rides.
Yeah.
But yeah,
definitely.
the opening I was not too happy to. I was like, yeah, it's okay, but it's nothing spectacular. And all in all, I found the original opening much more fascinating. Because I don't know, because at least we got minor and subtle changes to the opening every season. You know, when there were new houses and keeps that were introduced along the way. And if like one of the keeps got burnt down, that got reflected in the intro. You know, it would be on fire in the opening sequence. So I thought that was pretty cool.
I never noticed that because I only watched the opening sequence like a few times in that too.
Oh, I always watched it because we always watched it. Me and my wife watched it together, and we didn't skip the opening sequence. So yeah, that was interesting about the original is that they made subtle changes in the opening sequence depending on what happened in the story. So I've seen all the openings. So yeah, stuff gets changed around. You only saw it once, the original opening sequence?
Maybe like 3 times at the most.
So what I would have suggested is that for each season, you should have watched it at least once.
Once per season? Okay.
Yeah, because they typically change some aspects of it every season.
Okay. So with House of the Dragon, how do you think episode 2 compares to episode 1? Because I liked episode 1 more. Because like there were more grimdark aspects and they had like the sex and the brutal violence and bloodiness. They had more of that stuff. It was almost entirely just the political scheming in this episode, which I do like, but not as much of the grimdark aspects like the sex and violence and stuff like that. And also, what do you think about Daemon and Rhaenyra's characters? Because we kind of talked about Viserys, and they're kind of the 3 of them, I would say, are kind of the main protagonists so far. And Daemon is my favorite character so far because he's so violent and chaotic.
He's your favorite? Dollar Store Legolas?
Yeah. Yeah.
I think I do like Rhaenyra a lot. Because she's kind of the underdog and she's kind of thrust into these positions that she doesn't really want to be in. It seems like all she really wants to do is ride her dragon and be a dragon rider and do things associated with dragon riding. And that there's all these duties that she has to do because of her station, which she doesn't really care for.
Right.
But I don't know. I have to see how Rhaenyra develops. Daemon, he just seems like a not as cool Tyrion. He's not witty or anything.
I don't think he seems that similar to Tyrion. I mean, I guess one similar aspect would be that he's kind of like the outcast of the family in a way. But he's
and who in the family
more like
visited brothels?
Yeah, he's more like, I don't know. There are lots of violent and unpredictable characters in Game of Thrones. He's more like those people, I would say. Like, I don't know
Yeah,
why I can't think of any off the top of my head, but there are lots of violent and erratic characters in Game of Thrones for sure.
Joffrey.
Yes. Oh yeah. He's
But
the
I
best
didn't
example of
like
that.
Joffrey. Joffrey, I completely hated.
Yeah. Joffrey was fucking awful. He's terrible.
He's
I don't
not
think.
like as childish and stupid as Joffrey.
Yeah.
But
Yeah. Damon
when
is he's more mature than that.
Damon though is really insecure though,
Yeah. He is.
which I find interesting because comparing him to like similar characters who are also insecure. Well, I guess Joffrey was to an extent, but yeah, Joffrey is like the most insecure character I could think of.
Yeah. Probably.
But maybe even Jamie post hand chopping.
Oh. The other. Like. Oh yeah. Probably the most evil character in the show is I don't remember whether it's I think it's his son, but Roose Bolton's I think it's his
Oh,
son,
Ramsay
right?
Bolton,
Who's
yeah,
yeah, Ramsay Bolton, who like he he tortures people. He fuck, why am I forgetting the name of that guy that he tortures and turns into Reek? Literally like fucking changes his personality, and
Theon
he's always like
Greyjoy.
yeah, Theon Greyjoy. Yeah, and he's always feeding people to his wild dogs, and then finally at one point after he's married and like
Mary's
beat
fake
the fuck out,
Sansa.
yeah, and beat the fuck out of and rape Sansa on a regular basis, she finally gets to watch when he gets eaten alive by his own dogs.
Well, they did change that for the show because in the book he never got a hold of Sansa.
Oh yeah, I forgot about that. Well, that's it. That's the point in the
He
show
had fake
that
Arya. Fake Arya is who he had,
right.
and then I guess John went to go rescue fake Arya.
Yeah. Isn't in the at the end of the books, isn't he still alive? Because I think it's in
Yeah,
season
at the end of the
5.
books, there was not resolved because
Yeah.
you have to remember the book ends with him getting killed, with John getting killed.
Yeah, yeah. And then I think it's season 5 where the show goes beyond the plot of the books, right?
Yeah, whenever he gets revived is when it goes beyond the plot of the books.
Yeah, I don't remember whether that's season 5 or 6. I think it might be 5, but if it is 6, I did notice then that at least kind of towards the end of 5, it already kind of started to drift away from where the books are going in terms of the plot.
Right, right. But yeah, I'm not sure about Damon. Yeah, he has the potential of being a Joffrey, but I'm not
Yeah,
sure. He's able to rein in some of his eccentricities. Um, but it seems like the stuff that he's doing, he's trying to prove that he's useful, but it ends up
yeah,
backfiring. Like
yeah.
when
I
he does the purge, he does it because he wants the place to be secure for the
yeah,
tourney.
yeah.
But then
Of
he went
course.
way too overboard with that.
Definitely. Yeah, that jousting tournament in episode 1 was really cool too.
Oh
That was a
yeah, the
really cool part of
melee.
the
I was like,
episode.
I wasn't expecting like people to actually get killed in the
Yeah,
melee. I thought they were just gonna yield and whatnot. So
yeah,
when the
yeah,
fight happened between Sir what's his name? Sir Craston or whatever his name is and
yeah. I think you're
Daemon, I
right.
thought that was gonna be a fight to the death. Because it
Yeah, I
seemed
thought
like
it was
every other
too.
fight was to the death. And that's weird too because
Exactly.
some of those people got unhorsed and then they would just quit. Like they wouldn't
Hmm.
proceed to fight each other.
Yeah, but then they
So I
kept on
didn't
going.
expect that either. Yeah, they kept
Yeah.
on going. I think it's
Hmm.
because he got embarrassed from being knocked off the horse.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, he's like insecure, like you said earlier, for sure. Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't really like I'm definitely not saying I morally approve of anything Damon does, but I like him so far because he's violent and erratic, but he's also not like a fucking evil insane psychopath like Ramsay Bolton or like Joffrey. He has the potential to become that way like you said, but he has the potential to become perhaps maybe more morally good if he ends up aligning with Rhaenyra as happens in the Fire in Blood book. But I mean, it seems like it kind of seems like it wouldn't surprise me at all if what they do with many of the characters is the same as what happened in Game of Thrones, in that the morally good characters become corrupted somewhat and become more morally gray. They're still kind of the good guys, but they're willing to do morally bad things if it's for the sake of a morally better and higher outcome, perhaps. And then the bad guys just stay bad and get worse.
Mm. Oh yeah, I forgot to say you watched Stranger Things, right? The newer
Yeah.
season.
Mm-hmm.
Did you know that the guy who played the Russian spy in the prison that's Jake and Hagar?
Oh no, I didn't realize that.
Yeah, that's Jake and Hagar.
Oh, okay. Cool. So I don't think you answered whether you liked episode 1 or 2 better.
Oh, I definitely liked episode 1. It seems like they
Okay.
crammed a lot of like the notes that they try to hit, usually in the HBO/fantasy show: nudity, violence,
Yeah.
scheming.
Yeah, exactly.
Um, and this second episode, it's more of a character and plot driven episode. There's not a whole lot of there's the only violence we see on screen are people getting eaten by crabs,
Yeah, yeah, at the start
which
and
is
end
pretty
of the
gruesome.
episode. Yeah, it is true. And other
um,
than that, it's mostly the political scheming.
yeah, and like him trying to resolve issues with his daughter, the king and the daughter,
Yeah, Viserys and Rhaenyra.
befriend, seducing. But yeah, not a whole bunch of important stuff happened
Hmm.
other than the big thing was the announcing of him marrying Hightower's daughter.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that's the big twist ending at the end of the episode. I think it's
Which is a pretty
interesting
good
too.
cliffhanger. It's a good
Oh yeah,
cliffhanger.
yeah, for sure. I think it's
So
interesting too. I was thinking about this, about how you pointed out that uh, so far I like House of the Dragon more than Lord of the Rings of Power show. But I was thinking about how you pointed out that, well, it made me think about anyway, about how perhaps I like House of the Dragon more mostly because of the grim dark aspects, because one of my big complaints about Rings of Power so far is that it's a really slow paced plot, but you pointed out that the plot in House of the Dragon is actually pretty slow too, but there are just more grim dark aspects.
yeah, the second episode is it's pretty slow. Like
It is.
it's not like fast paced or anything. The first episode was. They threw a lot
Yeah,
of stuff in there. There was a
they did.
melee, there was a botched pregnancy. We saw some dragons. It's like, well, there's a lot of stuff going on here. There's a whorehouse. There was a freaking massacre in town. So there's a lot of stuff that happened in that first episode. And in the second episode, it's like really slow compared to the first.
Yeah, yeah, for sure.
And when it comes to the Tolkien stuff, as far as like the show cliffhangers and the intrigue, right now I'm more interested in finding out who the Maiar is,
Yeah,
which
yeah,
kind of
me
makes me
too.
lean towards the Lord of the Rings show right now because I really want to know who that is. As far as like the House of the Dragon, one of the bad things about the House of the Dragon is that we've read Fire and Blood, So a lot of that mystery of what's going to happen isn't too much of a mystery for us.
Yeah, true.
So even though, like, when I watched the original show, there were events that I really, really looked forward to that I had read. Like, I know the Red Wedding was something I was like, oh, when I remember when I was with my wife, she's like, oh, you're gonna love this scene. I knew exactly what was gonna happen, and she
Right.
like physically gasped when I think the first person to get stabbed is it the wife?
I don't. Yeah,
Rob's
I think it
wife?
might be. I don't remember whether it's her or Rob Stark. I think it's
I
one
think
of
it's
the two of
Rob's
them.
wife that gets stabbed first
Okay.
in the scene, at least.
Yeah.
Um,
Another that reminds me, another aspect of the books that I would be really interested to see if George R.R. Martin ever finishes Winds of Winter and the other book in the series. I really would look forward to seeing this aspect that he developed with Catelyn Stark in the later books that are published, where it turns out that she actually either survived the Red Wedding or she came back as some sort of zombie, and Brienne of Tarth is like her bodyguard at the end of the, like, close to the end of the published books. So I thought that was a really interesting thread that they didn't build on at all at the show.
yeah, Fire and Blood was the last book published in the Game of Thrones universe. And that was
Yeah.
published in 2018.
Yeah, yeah. After Dance of Dragons, he published that. George R. R. Martin did, and The World of Ice and Fire, and I think he did one other one that's a night of. I think isn't it called A Night of the Seven Kingdoms? I think I read
Oh, that
that
one
one too.
was, yeah, that one came out earlier than those two. Is
Okay,
that was there were the Night of the Seven Kingdoms is it's like three novellas. It's like an anthology of three
okay.
novellas. Have you read those yet?
Yeah, the all three of those though. Until I recently read Fire and Blood, I read all three of those like years ago when they first came out. So I don't really
Oh, because
remember
they're
that much of
old.
any of them. Yeah.
Yeah, they came out like in like the late 90s.
Oh, really? Oh, maybe I didn't read that one then. I don't think
Oh,
I
you
read
haven't?
one. I don't think I read one that came out in the late 90s. I thought I had read three other ones other than the main five books in A Song of Ice and Fire, but maybe I only actually read two.
Well,
Uh,
the first novella came out in the late 90s, but he didn't publish the anthology until 2015.
oh, okay. Well, maybe that was what I read in 2015 or so then. Maybe that's what I
Yeah, I
remember.
really liked that anthology. I thought it was really good.
Yeah, it's
Um,
interesting from what I can remember. I can't remember very much of it, but I remember thinking it was interesting.
well, I remember the first one was Attorney, and I think he got to like the finals or something. And then I remember one where he was like tasked with protecting a castle or something. It's been a while since I've read these.
Yeah, it's cool to have kind of novellas in the Song of Ice and Fire universe. It's kind of it's cool when authors do that. It reminds me a little bit of the short story collections in the Dresden Files series, Briefcases, and what's the other one called? I forget, but there are two of them that are collections of short stories.
Uh, yeah, Briefcases, and I forgot the other one.
Yeah,
Yeah,
both of those are good too. And it's also cool that it gives you little interesting aspects of the plot and the characters that actually are really huge reveals for some of the other books. Like, for example, how Dresden's dog is actually super intelligent and can understand what humans are saying when they're talking, and is actually arguably even more intelligent than humans.
interesting.
And one of my favorites too is when Dresden's brother Thomas, the white cord vampire, has that fight with all of these black cord vampires.
Well, yeah, the amazing thing about these short stories and novellas is that we get to see POVs that aren't Dresden, because basically all the Dresden books are first person points of view of the main character, and we never see any other points of view. And I love that he experiments with other points of view in these short stories and novellas.
Yeah, that's really cool for sure. There's so many interesting ones, like I forget her name, but that other wizard in the high court who Dresden ends up dating, that one that's from her perspective.
Yeah, she has like an Italian name, but I forgot.
Yeah, that one was really cool. There was even one that was from basically like that Bigfoot character's perspective, right?
There are three. Yeah, there are three from that.
Oh yeah, I forgot there are three. Yeah, it's really cool.
There's three from the Bigfoot, and we get to see his son like get older. There's ones from the point of view of Molly.
Yeah.
Like even Marcone has a book.
Yeah.
A story from his perspective. A perspective from his dog.
Yeah.
Perspective from his daughter. So we get all different types of different POVs, which I thought was pretty awesome. And the nerd guy with the freaking lightsaber. Butters.
Oh yeah.
I think there's one with Michael too.
Isn't it Butters or something like that?
Butters is the night.
Yeah, I remember because he has the same name as the character from South Park.
Yeah, Butters, and then you have a Michael POV. They do a Murphy too.
Oh yeah, for sure. I think you're right too. I remember you mentioned a while ago. I think you're right that when Tristram finally reads the Dresden Files, I bet Michael will be his favorite character.
Yeah, for sure. Michael's going to be his favorite character. I have no doubt. Because he's like the morally good paladin.
Yeah, good. that was making me think about how it's cool that, well, both in the Song of Ice and Fire books and in Game of Thrones and the House of the Dragon show, we always cycle between multiple different POVs. And that's, of course, one thing that the show creators are doing with House of the Dragon that they didn't do with Fire and Blood. Because like we were talking about, Fire and Blood is basically a fake history book about the history of the Targaryens. So it's interesting that they kind of picked
POVs,
yeah, exactly. So it's interesting that they kind of picked these characters and they're sticking with those POVs, especially because in Fire and Blood, there are a whole lot of other rulers that come along before all the stuff with Viserys and Rhaenyra and Daemon, and that's actually a small portion of the Fire and Blood book.
Yeah, because I know Dance of Dragons is a significant part of Fire and Blood, but we also have everything that came before, which is like the Targaryens clashing with the Lords of the Land and clashing with the Church.
Yeah,
and I don't think they would have made a show about the Church clashes, because all it was about is like, oh, we hate that you're incestual.
Yeah.
And then it ultimately gets resolved as saying, okay, incest is okay if you're a Targaryen.
Yeah, exactly.
But yeah, you could definitely see that the book itself treats like the Dance of Dragons as like the significant historical event. And I think I want to go back through it again. I'm just going to go a little bit slower this time.
There's a hell of a lot of information there and a lot of mainstream
I think it's 26 hours. It's a long book.
Yeah, even though I just reread it so I've read it twice. There's still like I still don't remember most of it, and I was focusing on mostly and trying to consciously remember all the aspects of the story to do with the characters in the House of Dragon show, like Viserys and Rhaenyra and Daemon.
Right. So I think I want to go back through it, but I need to find out the chunk that specifically. I want to go back through the book, but the chunk of the book specifically outlining like the characters of Viserys and Daemon and Rhaenyra, because I don't want to go through that beginning part again. I do want to go back into like the Dance of Dragons and re-listen to that part.
Yeah, that's a good idea.
But yeah, I was gonna do that like pretty soon, actually.
So, what do you think in the show about the High Towers, the Hand of the King and Alicent Hightower, and then also the Sea Snake himself? Because I think in particular the Sea Snake and the Hand of the King, they're pretty interesting characters, and it seems like they're going to end up being more interesting and doing more political scheming and stuff like that.
Well, we could see with this event that there's a possible burning of bridges. So we get the burning of the bridge between the Valerians. We got a burning of the bridge between his daughter, because she stormed out. She was not happy about that. I don't know if she's more mad at her dad or more mad at her friend. That's what I'm not able to figure out.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, because I'm sure she feels betrayed by both. And if the show creators go with the plot of Fire and Blood, that might be the catalyst that maybe the major catalyst that contributes to her kind of ending up eventually aligning with Daemon and him supporting her claim to the throne.
Mm-hmm. So I think all of that's probably going to happen after the time skip.
Mm-hmm.
Look forward to that when it happens.
Yeah, that'll be really cool. I wonder if they're gonna, like I was saying before, I wonder if they're gonna do like some sort of time skip with each season, or they're maybe just gonna do one time skip and they're gonna stick with all the characters. Maybe they will just do one time skip or something like that, because they've already chosen to focus on these characters, and if they were going to more directly base it on Fire and Blood, it would be more of like an anthology that you could have, where you could have different characters in each season. But it doesn't seem like they would do that. Like, it seems like they're going to stick with the characters that they've chosen to stick with now.
Yeah, I think they're probably going to completely focus on the Dance of Dragons. And if HBO really wants to make money, this show is going to probably be pretty slow paced. I don't know. Do you know how many seasons they're planning on for the show?
I was wondering that too, because I was wondering how they could stretch out just the narrative with these characters into so many seasons.
Because that's all it's going to be. It's just going to be these characters and fights for succession over the throne. But these characters do get older, so there's going to have to be some type of time skips that happen.
Yeah. I'm going to Google how many seasons will there be of House of the Dragon. I wonder if they have decided that yet.
I guess it's going to
House of the Dragon,
on how popular the show is.
It seems like it would make sense to me if it were shorter and had less seasons. Apparently, House of the Dragon might not be as long. Oh, I'm sure there's going to be a season 2. It's officially been renewed for season 2. Oh, before 2 days before the first episode even came out, it was already renewed for season 2.
Okay.
Oh, okay. Sources say that 3 to 4 seasons are plotted so far. Okay. I think it would be cool if they just stuck to 3 or 4, or maybe even 5 seasons, because it would be easier to fit what material they have to work with in terms of the plot into that time frame without stretching it out too much and potentially making it boring.
Because they do not have, what is it, 5 books worth of material?
Yeah, 5 long-ass books worth of material.
I think 3 at most, because we're basing this off of 1 book, you know. And it all depends on how much detail they're going to go in between the lines.
And even with the Hobbit movies, they only managed to stretch that out into 3 long-ass full-length movies.
Right. So we'll see. And it's a pretty long book, but we also know they are filling in the gaps in a lot of places, like a lot. Like most of what we see and dialogue-wise is all filled in. Like there's very little dialogue in the book.
Yeah. Since it's a fake history book, like you said, there's almost no dialogue because it's supposedly like the Maesters or whatever describing events to us.
Mm-hmm. The Maesters or Mushroom.
Yeah.
But we'll see. I'm invested. I am invested in the show. But yeah, I would say episode 2 is a little slow going in comparison to the first episode, which was which kind of jumped in there with all the things that we're used to seeing in a Game of Thrones show.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I definitely like episode 1 more. I still like episode 2 more, and I'm still invested like you too, for sure, though. And yeah, like we were kind of talking about earlier, I'm totally invested in both House of the Dragon and Rings of Power so far, but I do like House of the Dragon more so far. But yeah, I'm excited to see what happens in both of them. And like you were mentioning too, there's a hell of a lot more filling in the gaps with Rings of Power. So there's more of a mystery about what's going to happen in the next episodes. And there's still a mystery. There's still a mystery in House of Dragon for sure, because I know what the outcome is going to be in some of those events. But like you were saying, they're filling in a lot of the gaps there too. So there could still be a hell of a lot of surprises too.
Yeah, well, certainly everything to me is still a surprise because, like I said, I didn't retain much from the House of the Dragon, and that's because there were certain parts I found like super interesting, and then other parts that I was just kind of like going through the motions. So now that I know where the show is focusing on, I'm gonna go back into that audiobook and then focus on like the particular parts that pertain to the show.
Yeah, that's what I did when I reread it recently. I listened to the whole book and maybe didn't pay full attention to some of the parts, but I made sure to pay very close attention during the parts where they were going through all of the characters that are on the show, like Viserys and Rhaenyra and Daemon.
So yeah, I'll probably I just have to go and do some internet research to see where it starts. I'm pretty sure there's somebody out there that says, "Oh, you start in this chapter. And this is kind of where the show."
Oh yeah. I bet people have definitely researched that and put that information online.
Yeah, so that's what I'm gonna have to look for because I'm almost done with the Satanic Verses. Have you even started that?
Oh no, I still didn't see that in the audiobook folder. Would you mind sending that to me again? Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I'll have to make sure it's posted.
Okay. Yeah, I'll totally read it. I'll totally read it when you send it to me. I'd be glad to talk about that.
Okay, yeah, I'll have to check the audiobook folder and see if I can get that uploaded. I swore I thought I had it in there.
Maybe you put it in the older audio. Folder. Yeah. I haven't looked at that one, and it's
Well,
like
you
way
probably
far
do
back in
because
our
it's
messages.
not. Yeah, yeah, probably have to open the older one. But if you can, try to bookmark these folders because I'm gonna every time one gets full, I'm opening up a new one, and then the old ones, they're gonna stay there. I'm not gonna delete them or anything. I'm just gonna create a new email address and fill it up again with audio
Yeah.
files.
Yeah, I didn't even think about that. Bookmarking them. That's a good idea.
Yeah, so if I find it, I'll send you the link and then you can bookmark it.
All right.
So you can listen to the satanic verses.
Sweet. So I don't think we heard back from Chris yet here, so maybe he
probably fell asleep, maybe.
Yeah. Or his wife didn't get home as soon as he expected, so he had to take care of the kids. It's understandable, of course.
Sex slave wife.
Yep. There is I guess a sex slave fiance technically in the show.
But she's not his slave though. I think she's like a willing participant.
Well, former sex slave fiance who he rescued from being a sex slave in a way.
Was she a slave or was she just like a brothel girl?
It seems like she was like I kind of got the impression that the prostitutes there were slaves because it sounds like she didn't want to go back to that and she was doing that against her will.
True. I think that is probably the case for her.
Yeah.
Because she said she was sold, right?
Yeah, exactly.
She had been sold. But Westeros is free though, so I don't know what's going on there.
Yeah, I don't know. I guess
slavery is all in the free cities.
yeah, that's interesting. Yeah, I mean, I guess if you have no other way to make money or something, then selling yourself into slavery is the only way to go for some people in the Song of Ice and Fire world.
Oh yeah, and then we find out the free cities are pretty damn strong.
Exactly. Yeah.
Or they can kick the Targaryens' butts, apparently.
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly. All right. So, there anything else that you wanted to talk about in terms of the show?
Nothing. Do you think the actress who plays Rhaenyra has the RBF?
Oh yeah, resting bitch face. I didn't notice that as much as you, but I bet the next time I watch the next episode, I'll notice that more than now that you pointed it out. I was wondering too if partially because when I looked up the actor, I saw that in her picture on IMDb she has kind of like big, yeah, she has kind of big teeth. So it seems like in the show she's doing some sort of thing to cover up her big teeth because I never noticed that in the show. So I wonder if maybe some of her resting bitch face is kind of a side effect of that.
I think it's because she looks like she's pouting all the time.
Yeah.
Like the ends of her mouth are like turned up.
Oh yeah, I could see that. If you got big teeth and you're trying to keep your mouth closed, but you're focusing it on the middle because you want to cover up the ones in the middle the most, I could see how it could look that way.
But yeah, RBF kind of looks like that guy, but I don't know if the guy from Maze Runner. I don't think you've ever seen that.
No, I haven't seen Maze Runner.
It's a post-apocalyptic movie based off of a book.
Yeah, I know that they're based on books.
But I've seen the movie series, but I've never read the books. Oh yeah, the book that I forgot was Mockingjay.
The one in the Hunger Games series?
Yeah, there's a girl that the girl that plays the queen is also in Mockingjay.
Oh, okay. I haven't seen all of the Hunger Games movies. I think I've seen all of them except the last one, the one that they made into a two-parter. I think I only watched part one of that. I think.
Oh, The Mockingjay? Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've watched all of them. I have not read the books. I do plan on reading them at some point in my life.
Yeah, the books are pretty good. Books are pretty good. I think the books and the movies are worth watching and worth reading. I'm not a huge fan of them though, but they're pretty good.
Yeah, yeah. I'm pretty sure I could get through it pretty quickly.
Did you did you like the Maze Runner movies?
I liked them. I thought they were intriguing, just like the world. Actually, I like the first one the best. And then after the first one, it kind of fall out.
Okay. Yeah, there are a lot of I think it was maybe with Hunger Games that kind of spawned a whole little genre of like YA post-apocalyptic fiction that they turn into movies. Like Maze Runner's one of those, I think, that kind of like followed the pattern uh of Hunger Games a little bit.
Yeah. But at least like it's not too YA, you know.
Yeah, it's pretty good. It definitely has some dark aspects for YA. It's kind of not very YA-ish YA, kind of similar to his Dark Materials in that way, I think. But I like his Dark Materials more.
Yeah, I think my favorite book of his Dark Materials is the second book.
Yeah, The Subtle Knife. Yeah, that's a good one. That's when they're starting to travel in
That's when it
between
gets a
different
little
realms, I
dark.
think, right?
Yeah,
Yeah, it gets
yeah, that's
darker and kind of like more sci-fi-ish, which is cool.
yeah. Um, and then there's some books after the trilogy.
Yeah, I still
Just
haven't read
two.
those. I want to reread the original trilogy and then read those newer books because I haven't read them.
Yeah, because I think the newer books are like supposed to be a second trilogy.
Okay. Yeah, that'd be cool. Yeah, those are really good. Those are some of my favorite YA books. They might be my favorite. I'm not sure.
Right, let's see.
Are you looking up the new books in his Dark Materials?
Yeah, I've read both of them. One of them's a prequel and one of them's a continuation
Oh, so
of the
there are
story.
like nine. Are there 9 books in total? Or are those ones just 2 separate books?
There's okay, so there's the three main books, and then there's the prequel, and then the book that continues like the story, but like years later.
Okay.
But the prequel is tied to that book, so it's kind of within the same trilogy that they're trying to do, like the next trilogy. It's weird. You have to read it to see.
Okay.
This is the origin story of what's her name?
Lyra.
Yeah, it's her origin story, kind of,
Okay.
before she's even, because she's a baby in the first, in that prequel. And the main character of the prequel is somebody that goes to that school. Because it's basically the event where the baby gets handed off at the college. But it's like the story
Okay.
surrounding that and the struggle that occurred.
All right. All right. Well, I guess we've fairly thoroughly discussed House of the Dragon, first 2 episodes, and also within the context of Game of Thrones and Fire and Blood. So yeah, I guess we can end it here, and hopefully I'll send both of these chats, this one and the one from yesterday, to you, so you can post them on your channel too. And hopefully next weekend maybe we can talk about Rings of Power and House of Dragon again, because there should be new episodes out.
Okay.
But
right. We can definitely revisit House of the Dragon. So did you want to do it every 2 episodes, every episode, or how do you want to work it out?
I guess depending on when they come out. I guess if there are one more episode of each show, we could just do episodes about each of those next week. And
okay.
I also finished watching the OCD project for whenever we can do that on your channel too.
Oh yeah, we're overdoing that one.
Yeah. Just focusing on all the new fantasy shows right now, which is fun.
Yeah, so much. Yeah. Lord of the Rings, House of the Dragon, and in a few months we should be getting the Wheel of Time back too.
Yeah, Wheel of Time season 2. Yeah, and I'm sure we'll talk with Tristram about every episode on of that on your channel too.
Yeah,
that'll be fun. Yeah, that one was that was pretty like a lot of people hated it, but I think we all agreed that it was good, but could have been better, pretty much. So yeah, I'm looking forward to season 2. Yeah,
I thought it was okay. Like I wasn't like mad at the show or anything.
Yeah, and it definitely goes like drifts away from the canon of the books, and some of that's good. Like we were talking about. Is it episode 4? That's
4.
Not. Yeah, it's 4. That's not very. Yeah, it's like the best episode of the season, and it's not very canon at all. But then episode 8, in my opinion, is the worst episode, and it's not very canon either. So it can be kind of hit or miss with that. But it's definitely a good show overall. And yeah, I mean, I have similar thoughts about Rings of Power, and like I said, I like House of the Dragon a little more than Rings of Power so far. But yeah, definitely looking forward to talking about the rest of the seasons for both of them. So yeah, everyone watching, look forward to that. We'll do discussions about each episode for Rings of Power and House of the Dragon. Check out the episode that Dustin and Tristram and I did yesterday on Rings of Power episode 1 and 2. And yeah, click that like button, subscribe to the channel if you haven't done so already. Click that bell to be notified when we come out with new videos. I think probably during the week before next weekend, I wanted to talk about this book I read recently by George R.R. Martin, who wrote Song of Ice and Fire and Blood. It's this book that he published in the 80s, which is his vampire book. So it's really cool because I love vampires, and it's totally not what you would expect from the vampire story, because it takes place in the 1700s, and the main character is a steamboat captain who a vampire ends up going on his ship, and it's really interesting. So I wanted to talk about that. So look forward to that as well. And also check out my Patreon page. The link is in the description of the video as always. And if you give me $10 a month, you can vote on future topics, books, and movies that I will discuss both by myself and with others. And like I always say, I love you all. Keep being the tiny beam of light that shines through the almost impenetrable darkness in the universe. And most importantly, always remember this: the funk cures all, and groove is in the heart. And check out House of the Dragon. It's a good show. And watch Game of Thrones, and read the Song of Ice and Fire books, and read Fire and Blood, and check out the new Rings of Power show, and read all of Tolkien's work. Fantasy is awesome. All right. Anything else you want to say before we end it there, Dusty? You could give your new official send-off there, too.
Yeah, so yeah, we'll be doing the OCD project in the future, possibly next week, possibly the week after that. We'll see how it works out. And yeah, that's going to be it. I'm really excited about the fantasy shows this season. Looks like
Yeah.
we're going to be super busy.
Yeah. Basically, 3 of them, 2 of them at once, and 2 of them back to back. Basically.
Yeah, we might see overlap between the Wheel of Time as well. So it's possible we might be watching 3 fantasy series at the same time.
Oh yeah, that'd be cool. Yeah. So check out Dusty's channel as well, of course, Woke Centrist.
Right. And thank you for watching, guys. Toodaloo,
All right.
motherfucker.
All right. Adios, everyone.